Hello there. Welcome to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. I'm Andy Richards. Your top stories on Monday, the 12th of November. A brother's emotional tribute. Romanian family distraught after Maidstone tragedy.
Looks like it was a big mistake bringing him here. If I could turn back time.
£200 million Brexit bailout. The government's plan to help Kent's ports.
The reality is that Ramsgate is a very small port and it won't accommodate the large vessels.
Kent remembers thousands fall silent for Armistice Day.
We do strive for peace, and that's what it's about. War is an horrendous thing, not a glorious thing.
And in sport, roll up, we speak to the world-beating Maidstone roller skaters.
First tonight, a KMTV exclusive. The brother of a man who's died after being hit by a car in Maidstone says he wishes he never persuaded him to move to England. Police have launched an investigation into Christian Dimitri's death following the crash in the early hours of Saturday morning. Joe Caution spoke to his brother Dorrell earlier today.
Now, police sealed off the road here in Lower Stone Street in the early hours of Saturday morning, and as you can tell, there's quite a few road repairs and maintenance work going on here, which means pedestrians do have to take a bit of a longer walk to get to where they want to go. Now, a witness at the time told KMTV that as he was walking by, he saw a man lying in the road with a blanket over him and he wasn't moving. And that was when later that police confirmed that the man in his 40s died at the scene. The man has now been named locally as 47-year-old Christian Dumitru from Romania, who moved to Maidstone just last month. And in a tearful tribute, his brother Dorrell told KMTV he wishes he never persuaded him to come to England in the first place.
New beginning. We tried to... Looks like it was a big mistake bringing him here. If I could turn back time, I paid for his plane ticket to bring him here to, I don't know, find him a job, and it was amount since he was here. And in the middle of the night, I don't know, 3:30 in the morning, police called me that because they found his phone, and I was the last one who speak on the phone, and they called me, and I was right here. I don't know, I live in London, and I came here. I was here 5:30 in the morning, but the body was not here anymore.
Now, less than 72 hours on, Dorrell now has to identify him so he can inform the rest of his family back in Romania and try to find the money to fly his body back home.
I see him, I don't know, 2 days before this, Friday, yeah? I live in London, he lives over here. And I say, stay here and see how, if you're not going to have a job, I'll look for you a job over there. And I found for him a house over here, I pay for the rent and all this, and now this is happening. And now, I don't know, nobody told us nothing, nobody helped us with it. I just looked for this, he asked me for £10,000 so I could take the body to Romania. I don't have this kind of money.
Kent Police spokesperson said they were still appealing for witnesses following the incident, and they would also like to obtain any dashcam footage from anyone travelling in the Palace Avenue and Lower Stone Street areas shortly before the collision. And as police try to determine what's happened to Christian, for Dorrell and the rest of his family watching him pack up and move his life to Kent, they'll wish he was never on that road on that fateful night. Joe Caution for KMTV.
Ramsgate Port could receive millions of pounds of funding thanks to Brexit. The government plans to plough nearly £200 million into the port and others as the UK prepares to leave the EU. It's hoped new facilities could boost cross-channel trade with Belgium and minimise any lengthy checks at Calais. Christina Curtis has been to Ramsgate to find out more.
Transport Secretary Chris Grayling has announced that he is drawing up plans to expand Ramsgate Port as part of Brexit. As you can see behind me, the port of Ramsgate is empty, and that is quite often the sight here, but it's one that local people desperately want to change.
The last ferry service we had here was Trans-Europa, which collapsed in 2013, and since then the port has been losing £2.5 million a year approximately. During that time there have been discussions with over 5 operators to see if they would be interested in running a service, and without exception they've turned it down.
There's a black hole and it's sucking ratepayers' money down it, and that's the port of Ramsgate. It's a dead lump of concrete that is costing an obscene amount of money just to keep it sitting in readiness for nothing.
They also feel that Mr Grayling's plans may not be best suited for Ramsgate.
It warrants examination, but the reality is that Ramsgate is a very small port and it won't accommodate the large vessels that are used on the Dover routes. It's possible, at a stretch, that Ramsgate could handle about 500,000 trucks per year, but that's less than 5% of the load in Dover. So the question is, how effective is that going to be, and what economic benefit is it going to bring to Ramsgate?
Even were the port to be reconfigured to accommodate larger vessels, there's a very real difficulty because there's a very narrow single access channel which restricts actually the traffic in and out of Port Ramsgate at any time. So it's quite important that these logistics are taken into account.
Meanwhile, a spokesperson for Thanet District Council said, "We have been working on re-establishing ferry services at the Port of Ramsgate and are currently in discussions with a potential operator to establish a freight operation." The council has been keen to re-establish a ferry service since before the vote to leave the EU. This information has been shared with the government, but they have not responded on that basis. We recognise Ramsgate could play a role in supporting post-Brexit resilience by offering an alternative route for some cross-channel traffic to ensure at least some movement of goods should there be significant delays in Dover. But whatever the outcome for the port is, one thing they have all agreed on is that it certainly needs regenerating. This is Christina Curtis for KMTV.
Well, to talk a little bit more about this, I'm now joined by Councillor Harry Rayner from Kent County Council. So thanks very much for joining us, Harry. So what's your stance on this?
Right. I should say from the off, of course, that I'm talking for myself and not for Kent County Council. I'm a backbencher there and I don't speak with any cabinet approval.
No
However, as I've explained to you earlier, I have virtually a whole lifetime in shipping and port operations, and it's really interesting that the proposal that's come forward from Chris Grayling, but one I have to say that it's highly unlikely that they would be able to spend 200 million in Ramsgate, given the amount of time available. Yes, some of that money may well be spendable there, but you also have to question the draft available at Ramsgate is very limited at 6.5 metres. The equivalent is over 8.5 metres at Dover, so it isn't going to be easy to transfer the vessel. The amount of dredging that's required is very considerable. You're looking at certainly well over a metre's worth of dredging, not just in the port but in the approach channel as well. It isn't helped by the fact that you've got the Goodwin Sands right outside the entrance to the port, and in addition, one of the things that I haven't seen any sort of discussion about at all is it's well and good getting onto the Dutch and contracting for a big Dutch dredger to come and dredge. The difficulty is, what do you do with the arisings? In order to dispose of arisings, you need to get the approval of the Marine Management Organisation up in Newcastle on Tyne, and they are absolutely famous for the lack of alacrity with which they make decisions on this sort of thing. So if you ask me realistically whether I feel that this is a proposal that could fly, I really have to question whether anybody's done any kind of deep thinking about this and deep research to see whether or not it will go. In my view, it probably won't. More realistically, you can look at places like Sheerness and the Dartford International Ferry Terminal within Kent. My personal favourite, if I was Chris Grayling, would be to look at spending money in the haven ports at Harwich, at Harwich Navy, the Navy Yard there, and also the Bathurst Bay, and also at Ipswich as well. That's more realistic. You've got the A14 bound for the Midlands, and also there is some capacity there for holding on an old part of the A14 that's no longer used, holding HGVs that isn't readily available in Kent.
Well, Harry, thanks very much. It's fascinating stuff, and I'm sure there's going to be much more on how we're going to solve this problem come Brexit. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Now, a national motoring campaigner has sparked a social media storm by calling for parent and child parking spaces to be axed. Fairfuel UK's Howard Cox was speaking on BBC Kent this morning when he said the spaces should instead be used for disabled shoppers or be kept the same for everyone else. But what do you think? We are shoppers in Chatham.
I'd say disabled. Not everyone that you can see on the outside looks disabled, but there should definitely be disabled parking spaces available, and it should be a priority as well.
I don't know, I think they're 50-50 really, because you've got the young and you've got the old, haven't you, really, thinking about it. But I think personally, mums and the babies, because their families now have got maybe two little children instead of one. Okay?
Yeah, parents, children, disabled, OAPs, and that's pretty much it, I think.
I think the disabled people, and in most cases very old people who find it very difficult. Yeah, priority. Other than that, people are young and fit. You know, it doesn't hurt them to park a little bit away, or you know, it doesn't hurt at all.
Parents should get priority parking. OAPs should get priority parking. People with disabilities should have priority as well.
Shoppers in Chatham there, but who should get priority parking? You can join the debate by using the hashtag KentSays on social media. Well, coming up after the break, Harry's here with the sports, and we'll be taking a look back at how Kent marked Armistice Day across the world.
Today I laid a wreath made of khadi, the cotton that was made famous by Mahatma Gandhi, and the poppy which symbolises all those who died in the First World War.
Welcome back to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. Now, thousands turned out across Kent to mark the centenary of Armistice Day. Sunday marked exactly 100 years since the end of the First World War, with memorial events taking place around the county to commemorate those who lost their lives in conflict. Tonbridge and Malling MP Tom Tugendhat was in India to pay tribute to the millions from the Commonwealth who fought. Here's a roundup of the day's events.
People throughout Kent remembered the fallen soldiers of war over the weekend. And on the centenary of World War I, it was time to reflect on the peace we now have, but the terror war continues to bring. In Folkestone, a sand portrait of war poet Wilfred Owen was etched in sand as part of film director Danny Boyle's Armistice Commission, Pages of the Sea.
I mean, in a sense, we've been working on it for 4 years because we've been talking to 1418 now. Because of the very important role Folkestone played in the First World War, they've been looking to commemorate 100 years since the start. But just the fact that people came, everybody came and thought about people going overseas and what it must have been like for them, you know, going with excitement and enthusiasm perhaps, and then what happened once they were there.
Services happened all through the county, in Maidstone, Dover, Sheerness and more.
Today is special for us for the reason that it's been 100 years since the silence of the guns of the First World War. And we're here to pay our respects today to the soldiers, sailors and airmen who sacrificed everything in that war. We do strive for peace, and that's what it's about. War is an horrendous thing, not a glorious thing.
Meanwhile, MP Tom Tugendhat went to New Delhi to pay his respects for those who fought in the Commonwealth. He laid a wreath and a flower on the grave of Flight Lieutenant Biddle, who was from Cowden, Kent, where he lives. He was killed in 1944, aged just 22.
It's a great honour to be laying a wreath here at India Gate this morning in memory of the 1.5 million men from undivided India who fought, and sadly many who died, in Flanders and in Mesopotamia. Today I laid a wreath made of khadi, the cotton that was made famous by Mahatma Gandhi, and the poppy which symbolises all those who died in the First World War.
November the 11th is a day for the nation and much of the world to remember those who sacrificed themselves to protect our freedom and commemorate the lives lost in war. Isabel Miller for KMTV.
Next this evening, Kent's set to receive more than £13 million to help fix the county's roads. In the budget, the Department for Transport's announced £420 million dedicated to the problem, but have now revealed where it will be allocated. With more on this, our reporter Cameron Tucker joins me now. So Cameron, it's fairly complicated, but tell us, what are Kent going to get?
Well, as you said, Andy, it's been a fortnight since that big budget announcement and that announcement of that £420 million going in, that breakdown coming through. What we can see is that there'll be a little more than 66 million going towards southeastern roads to fix, mend and address any issues there. And from that 66 million, 12 million will be going to Kent and just above a million, 1.1 million will be going to Medway. So 13 million all in all going allocated from the Department of Transport. Now they've said that is going to be going towards investing in small safety, bus priority or walking and cycling schemes, and then also next year there'll be a further 167 million from local highways maintenance to address those issues, mainly potholing as they announced in the budget.
Well, here on Kent Tonight we talk about the terrible roads fairly regularly, and how much of a dent is this going to make into what's needed to fix all of our roads?
Oh, absolutely. It seems like a weekly story that we bring
nightly
about this issue. Since 2015, roads in the southeast we've seen have got almost 550 million for highways maintenance. Many have said, though, that there'll need to be sums well in excess of that to curb the issue in Kent. We recently reported on KMTV that there was fixing a backlog of £630 million, and that's projected to hit £1 billion by 2031. So the 13 million, comparatively small change to, as you said, address those dents and those many thousands of dents across Kent's roads. Well,
£13 million wouldn't be a small bit of change for me, but for our roads it certainly is. Cameron, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Now, meanwhile, motorists are being warned to find alternative routes as work to replace a footbridge will close 4 miles of the M20. Teapot Lane footbridge in Elsford was removed in September, closing the motorway between Junction 4 for Leybourne and Junction 6 at Bluebell Hill. 2 months on, and the bridge is set to be replaced with the same closure in effect from 10 o'clock on Friday evening. Highways England has closed the motorway until 6 a.m. on Monday, but hopes to finish the work early. Now here's Harry with a roundup of the sports.
Three roller skaters from Maidstone are representing their sport at an international level. Oliver Martin, Tally Hayen and Danny Hayen all went to the Artistic Roller Dance Championships on behalf of Maidstone Roller Dance Club. The sport isn't in the Olympics, unlike ice skating, but the club hopes this will change, and Poppy Jeffrey's got her skates on to find out more.
It's a sport often overlooked, with lots of attention going to its much colder cousin on ice. But artistic roller dance has strong talent in Kent. 3 skaters from Maidstone Roller Dance Club recently competed at the World Championships in France, with one placing in the top 10 skaters in the world. And I've come to meet them.
So what I probably love about it is everything that you can put into it yourself, so choosing your own music, making your own steps and choreography and all the expression you can put into it, really just making it your own and making something that you enjoy performing and practicing all year.
So I've just been to the World Championships, which is in France, and obviously we had to perform our 2 programmes there, so we were in the Vendée Space Arena, and it was a really great experience. So I was 9th in the world, so that ranks me in the top 10, so I was very happy with that.
It's not just for girls either.
Especially recently, I've noticed actually there's a lot more boys starting up, and it's a sport, like, it's no different if you're a girl or a boy, it's just how it is typically, but definitely over the last few years there have been a lot more boys starting, and even at the club there's more little ones coming up.
Now, it's been a while since I strapped wheels to my feet, but I guess the time has come. Now we've seen the pros do it, I get to put these on and see if I can actually try and not fall over. Not too bad, I don't think, but I'm definitely out of practice. How hard is this sport, though, and who can have a go?
You can start at any age, just you can walk and you can skate, it's fine.
Maidstone Roller Dance Club train with club sessions every Saturday at the YMCA, and there's a mix of dances, grades and games for everyone. Now that the World Championships are over, these skaters are now looking forward to what next year holds, and in the meantime they're hoping this sport gets the recognition and funding it needs to carry on producing world-class skaters. This is Poppy Jeffrey for KMTV in Maidstone.
Hockey now, and Kent sides were once again in action this weekend in the men's and women's Premier Division. With a look at how they all got on, plus a roundup of the scores, here's the results from the last 2 days. In the men's hockey division, Holcombe had a tough task as they hosted table toppers Surbiton. Nick Van Dork, who's been in fine form this season, put the Kent side ahead inside a minute. But after that, it was the Alan Forsyth show, as he scored 4 goals for Surbiton in the game, as they ran out 6-1 winners. Elsewhere at the other end of the table, struggling Sevenoaks travelled to the University of Exeter. The away side twice went in front though, Ali Taylor and Tom Chandler with the goals, but goals from George Carson, James Carson and Ben Cook led Exeter to a vital 3-2 win for them. In the women's division, and Holcombe closed the gap to 3 points to top of the table Surbiton. Candice Manuel once again on the score sheet as they won 1-0. Elsewhere, it wasn't such a good home game for Canterbury. Kate Williams' goal wasn't enough as they lost out 3-1 at Polo Farm. And you're up to date on sport for the time being. I'll have more for you, as well as a preview to this evening's Team Talk later in the programme.
Reminder, you can watch Kent Tonight live and on catch-up at our website, kmtv.co.uk. You can stay up to date with all the news, sport and weather from right across Kent, whenever and wherever you are. You'll find breaking news, local features and repeats of our special programmes. It's going to be grey and rainy this evening across the county with lows of 10 degrees. We can expect the sun to return tomorrow morning though, with temperatures between 11 and 12. Into the afternoon, and clouds will spread across most parts, but the wind will die down a bit, making it feel warmer. Highs of 13 in the east. Looking forward to the next few days, and there'll be some sunny spells on Wednesday and Thursday with temperatures staying in the mid-teens. Very mild indeed. After the break, we'll be live from Southwark Crown Court as Kent MP Craig McKinley's trial continues into allegations of election fraud. Paul Francis will be live for you. See you in a few moments. Hello there, welcome to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV. I'm Andy Richards. Your top stories on Monday the 12th of November. A brother's emotional tribute. Romanian family distraught after Maidstone tragedy.
Looks like it was a big mistake bringing him here. If I could turn back time.
£200 million Brexit bailout. The government's plan to help Kent's ports.
The reality is that Ramsgate is a very small port and it won't accommodate the large vessels.
Kent remembers thousands fall silent for Armistice Day.
We do strive for peace, and that's what it's about. War is an horrendous thing, not a glorious thing.
And in sport, rolling all over the world, we meet the Maidstone skaters destined for greatness.
A reminder of our top story this evening. The brother of a man who's died after being hit by a car in Maidstone says he wishes he never persuaded him to move to England. Police have launched an investigation into Christian Dimitri's death following the crash in the early hours of Saturday morning. Joe Caution has this KMTV exclusive.
Now, police sealed off the road here in Lower Stone Street in the early hours of Saturday morning, and as you can tell, there's quite a few road repairs and maintenance work going on here, which means pedestrians do have to take a bit of a longer walk to get to where they want to go. Now, a witness at the time told KMTV that as he was walking by, he saw a man lying in the road with a blanket over him and he wasn't moving. And that was when later that police confirmed that the man in his 40s died at the scene. The man has now been named locally as 47-year-old Christian Dimitru from Romania, who moved to Maidstone just last month. And in a tearful tribute, his brother Darrell told KMTV he wishes he never persuaded him to come to England in the first place.
New beginning. We tried to... Looks like it was a big mistake bringing him here. If I could turn back time, I paid for his plane ticket to bring him here to, I don't know, find him a job, and it was amount since he was here. And in the middle of the night, I don't know, 3:30 in the morning, police called me that because they found his phone, and I was the last one who speak on the phone, and they called me, and I was right here. I don't know, I live in London, and I came here. I was here 5:30 in the morning, but the body was not here anymore.
Now, less than 72 hours on, Darrell now has to identify him so he can inform the rest of his family back in Romania and try to find the money to fly his body back home.
I see him, I don't know, 2 days before this, Friday, yeah? I live in London, he lives over here. And I say, stay here and see how, if you're not going to have a job, I'll look for you a job over there. And I found for him a house over here, I pay for the rent and all this, and now this is happening. And now, I don't know, nobody told us nothing, nobody helped us with it. I just looked for this, it's asked me for £10,000 so I could take the body to Romania. I don't have this kind of money.
Kent Police spokesperson said they were still appealing for witnesses following the incident, and they would also like to obtain any dashcam footage from anyone travelling in the Palace Avenue and Lower Stone Street areas shortly before the collision. And as police try to determine what's happened to Christian, for Darrell and the rest of his family watching him pack up and move his life to Kent, they'll wish he was never on that road on that fateful night. Joe Caution for KMTV.
A man's been taken to hospital in a serious condition after he was stabbed on the Isle of Sheppey. Police have launched an investigation after the assault in Manor Road in Queenborough at around midday yesterday. The man was treated at the scene before being flown to a London hospital in a serious condition. Officers arrested a 27-year-old woman in connection with the incident, and a knife was seized from the location. The victim and the suspect are believed to be known to one another. Thanet MP Craig McKinley's trial into alleged election fraud has continued at Southwark Crown Court today. The Conservative MP is accused of breaking spending rules during the 2015 general election. Mr McKinley and his two assistants are said to have spent more than double the legal limit to see off former UKIP leader Nigel Farage's bid to win the South Thanet seat. Our political editor Paul Francis joins us from London now. So Paul, what can you tell us about today's proceedings?
Well, Andy, the court heard today from Marion Little, the third defendant in the case, and she was an important figure in the campaign. She was drafted in by the Conservative Party to help kind of reboot the campaign in South Thanet when they realised they had a real tussle on their hands with UKIP. And she was questioned about the expenses returns, and she emphatically denied any wrongdoing. Asked by her defence counsel whether she'd played fast and loose with the rules, she said no. She also had one or two interesting things to say about the media interest in the election campaign in South Thanet, and said that in all her years as an agent and campaign director, she had never seen so much media interest, and it was her job to try and keep the campaign on track and not be diverted by the presence of so many media people.
So in 2015, Paul, how hotly contested was this seat, and how important was it to the general election?
Well, it was crucial, and it became, as Marion Little said, the focal point for the entire general election campaign, not just the campaign in South Thanet. And that was because the Conservative Party were extremely concerned at the time about the impact UKIP would have, and the presence of Nigel Farage, the then leader of the UKIP party in South Thanet, meant that there was an awful amount of attention on the seat in 2015.
And what about the day job, Paul? How's Mr McKinley doing with his constituency? We've heard big news out of Ramsgate today. How is he staying across what's going on in Thanet?
Well, when we asked his constituency association about this, when the trial started, they were saying that there was a lot of very able people within the constituency which could take up constituency's concerns, but he's in court as a defendant in the trial every day since the trial began, and will be until its completion.
Well, Paul Francis, thank you very much indeed, and Paul will have more from the trial as it goes on. Now, next tonight, a national motoring campaigner has sparked a social media storm by calling for parent and child parking spaces to be axed. Fair Fuel UK's Howard Cox was speaking on BBC Kent this morning when he said the spaces should instead be used for disabled shoppers or be kept the same for everyone else. But what do you think? Should parents with children get priority parking? We are shoppers in Chatham.
Absolutely. I think it's hard enough for parents to get a spot anyway, especially when you've got a pram, and it'd be nice to actually have a space dedicated to mother and babies, and father and babies as well, definitely.
Yeah, they should get the paint put with children and mothers to park closer to the shops, so where the little ones ain't got to walk through the car park where it's dangerous, when the car can pull out and just hit a little one like that, no problem.
Yes, I do. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yes, there should be, yeah. It's dangerous that kids can wander away, and it's dangerous when you've got cars passing. Yeah, so yeah, definitely, I agree, it should be.
Without a doubt, of course. I mean, life is difficult enough with kids, very hard. It's like mobilising an army when you have to go anywhere. So, of course, yes, getting as close as you can to the shop, yeah. Definitely.
Definitely, yes. Especially the mums with the toddlers, especially at Christmas time in the supermarkets, definitely. And also for the disabled people.
Shoppers in Chatham there, but what do you think? Who should have priority parking? You can join the debate by using the hashtag KentSays on social media. Well, ironically, Mr Cox was supposed to be on the programme this evening, but got stuck in traffic. As we heard, there's an awful lot of problems on the roads going at the moment. So Emma Ray Woodhouse from KMTV has joined us to talk a little bit more about this. Now, as we said, it's caused a huge stir on social media, but also on KentOnline, Emma.
It has. So KentOnline put out a poll after Howard Cox tweeted earlier today, and a big 69% of people disagreed with him and said that parents do need the extra room to get their children out of the car. They said that parents were constantly opening their doors, slamming the car next to them, making dents, trying to get the carriers out of the car, and one parent even said that she had to climb in her boot often to get children out of their car, which left only 31% to say that yes, parents actually don't need the special treatment and they should find other ways to get the children out of the car.
And that's nearly 2,000 people voted. That's a huge amount of people voting on an issue, so it's certainly got people talking. What about some of the comments? So we got one up here.
So yeah, they didn't just take to the polls, that wasn't enough for them, they had to give their views as well. So in some of the comments, we've got Amber Brown, who wrote, "I'm pretty sure he wouldn't want his car damaged from parents trying to squeeze their children in and out of their car." We've got Skullmeister writing that this bloke obviously does not have children. It's practically impossible to get a baby out of a baby seat without opening the back door completely. We have a normal car and not a 4x4 car, and you can't open a door without hitting the car next to you. But some people did agree with him, like you say, and this Ashley Hand wrote that if women were born pregnant, I'd understand them being given advantages, but they choose to become pregnant and therefore they have to deal with those problems. And another person, just for clarification, wrote that actually the spaces aren't the problem, it's the fact that they're close to the store, and they can understand why they might need the spaces, but what would be the problem if they were at the back of the store and they could wheel the pram or carry the carrier to the front of the shop?
Well, from personal experience with my two children, it is pretty tricky. I've got to admit, if you go to a supermarket and you look for a space, you definitely look for those parent and child ones first. And it's exactly what they said, because both my children are of that age that they are in car seats. So you have to go in, you have to unlock it, you have to bring them out, you try not to damage the car next to you, get the buggy out, then hold the other one by the hand, make sure that they don't go into the road. So it's pretty tricky.
But would you say that the problem is that they're close to the store? Because I think what Howard Cox has a problem with is that people are abusing the spots by going into them even though they don't have child and parent spaces. If they're disabled spots, people are less likely to take them because they're aware that disabled people need them. Would you still be able to do it if the spaces were at the back of the car park?
I think it's about the space next to the car rather than how far away it is. But I'll tell you what, I do prefer being close to the shop when it's raining. Anyway, you got me there, Emma. Thanks very much. Now, we'll see you in a few moments. Welcome back to Kent Tonight, live on KMTV on Monday the 12th of November. In case you missed it, he should have never have come to England, a brother's emotional reaction to Maidstone tragedy.
I paid for his plane ticket to bring him here to, I don't know, find him a job, and it was amount since he was here.
Ramsgate riches, port set for millions in government Brexit plan.
It's a dead lump of concrete that is costing an obscene amount of money.
We shall never forget. Thousands fall silent for Armistice Day.
Just the fact that people came, everybody came and thought about people going overseas.
And in sport, road to Wembley continues. Kent sides in the hat for the FA Cup draw.
Time now for your pick of the papers with a look at what's making the news in print, online and radio across Kent. Earlier on today, I spoke to KMTV's Larka Christensen, who started off by telling me about housing plans for Maidstone.
My first story is about Folkestone and Hyde District Council, and they are looking to tackle antisocial behaviour. So basically they're discussing new public space protection orders, also called PSPOs, and they will hopefully go out for public consultation after they've gone before the council chiefs next week. There's 7 measures, some of them are already in place, and they cover stuff like homeless sleeping, begging, busking, street drinking, drug taking, just kind of to name a few. They come after sort of complaints made about nuisance fundraisers and about market stall holders, and they will be introduced in 7 areas across Folkestone and Hyde if they go through, hopefully by May 2019. So basically they will make it an offence to continue acting in an antisocial manner if you receive a warning from a police officer or council officer, and the fine will be up to £1,000. So hopefully Folkestone and Hyde can start working with them soon.
Wow, £1,000, that's a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah, I wouldn't want one of those.
And what about your second story?
So the second story is about a proposed building scheme in Maidstone, which has been rejected for not providing affordable housing. The project is called Tennyson Gardens, and the application was made by Peaker Holdings. It's on the former Springfield Library site in Maidstone, and so they're proposing 163 apartments within a single building. It'll be up to 16 stories tall in some places, so quite a almost skyscraper. They're building 1-bedroom flats, 2-bedroom homes, and 3-bedroom homes. The problem is that the local plan says that 30% of units have to be affordable housing, and Peaker Holdings have not said that any of these houses will be affordable housings. They were supposed to have made their planning application Thursday last week, but they actually withdrew it, probably to sort of try and prefix some of these problems. So we'll see what happens to this site.
That's awfully tall. It's going to change the landscape quite significantly, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I hope 16 stories is enough to get a nice view at the top.
And what about your third story, Larka?
So the third story is of a musical variety. The British dance act Left Field is set to DJ a set at Dreamland 2019. Now, I had to look these guys up because I'm not that old. But
I love Left Field. Anyway, carry on.
They debuted in 1990 with their single Not Forgotten, and they're sort of into the electronic dance music genre, and they've actually been sort of said to set the template for British house music. In 1995, which is when I was born, they debuted with their album Leftism, and it's been called sort of the defining statements of dance music, and also voted into the top 10 of greatest albums of all time by readers of Q magazines. They will play in the Hall by the Sea on Saturday, February 2nd, and tickets start from $12.50 and went on sale Wednesday last week.
I loved Left Field. They had a song in The Matrix which made them very famous. Anyway, I could talk about them all day. Thanks very much, Larka.
No problem.
And now here's Harry with the sport. A man who's definitely not heard of Left Field. But anyway, what we will talk about on the football field this evening is about the FA Cup. And how many Kent sides are still in the draw, Harry?
Well, for definite, Maidstone are the only ones so far definitely in the Cup. Dover, they got knocked out 5-0 by Bury at the weekend. Well, I mean, not really too unexpected, that result. Bury a couple of leagues higher than Dover, and Dover struggling anyway. Whilst Ebbsfleet, they've got to have a replay after they drew 0-0 with Cheltenham, and Gills also, they drew 0-0 with National League Hartlepool, so they've got to go up to the North East and play an away game replay against Hartlepool. But yeah, the FA Cup draw is tonight, 7 o'clock, so you can catch up on that on social media, on KMTV social media account, and also on KentOnline to find out the draw for that. Maidstone, they're number 2 in the hat. Ebbsfleet or Cheltenham, hopefully Ebbsfleet, they're number 3, and then Gills or Hartlepool, they're 22. Some of the big names left in there. Sunderland, they've got to have a replay against Port Vale, but Sunderland, they're still in there. Blackpool, another big name, former Premier League team in there as well. Some of the smaller teams, Slough Town, Grimsby Town, they're kind of making up the numbers for the smaller teams in there, but all important to try and advance into these rounds, because even at this stage, £54,000 is the prize money to get in that third round.
That's the important thing, isn't it? Because people forget the FA Cup, really, who support the bigger clubs, but for the smaller sides, it's really important for their budgets, isn't it?
It's huge. I mean, we've been hearing recently about Ebbsfleet's troubles off the pitch, and I'm sure they would happily snatch your hand off if you offered them £54,000. And of course, the trophy is the ultimate goal, but the money at this stage is important too. Now, staying with the FA Cup, and Gills boss Steve Lovell says he's confident that he'll get the right reaction from his side in their FA Cup replay. The Gills' first round tie against National League side Hartlepool ended goalless after a poor 90-minute display on Saturday, and the two teams will meet again next week for a place in the second round. And Lovell believes it's still all to play for, saying there's plenty of positives to take out of it, and that the FA Cup is a funny old competition and you just don't know what it will throw up.
It's going to be grey and rainy this evening across the county with lows of 10. We can expect the sun to return tomorrow morning though, with temperatures between 11 and 12 degrees into the afternoon, and clouds will spread across most parts, but the wind will die down a little bit, making it feel warmer. Highs of 13 in the east. Looking forward to the next few days, and there'll be some sunny spells on Wednesday and Thursday, with temperatures reaching the mid-teens and 16 in Chatham. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on all things going on in Kent by visiting our website, kmtv.co.uk. You can check out some of our latest stories from across the county, like this video about plans to build the UK's first fully sustainable development in Canterbury.
This farm doesn't look like much at the moment, but it could be the site of a revolution in sustainable living. Plans have been submitted for what two developers from Canterbury say is the UK's first fully sustainable eco-village.
So the concept is a simple one, to have these homes completely carbon neutral, which means they'll have everything from solar panels to ground source heating and even recyclable rainwater. And the idea is for the sites to go from this
to this. The project is the brainchild of Alistair Noel and his father Ralph, and they hope to become the trendsetters of sustainable living.
So what we're looking to do here is create something completely carbon neutral, which is totally sustainable for 2018. I see the world changing around me. I see that cars, you now have hybrid cars, fully electric cars. So why are we not doing it with the properties that we live in? We spend most of our time in our properties, and free energy is just the way forward for people.
The Noels say they've been approached by a national power provider that is keen to use the scheme as a guinea pig site and help provide the scheme with power. They hope the site will also feature electric car charging points and residents can book out a car for the day. All sounds very ambitious, but how did the inspiration for designing carbon neutral homes come about?
So my background as an architect is very much in a kind of progressive experimental area. So I'm kind of used to creating things that are very innovative and different, and perhaps a little bit of a surprise for people. Carbon neutral is really a given. I mean, that should be, all projects should be that now, because the technology exists now to be carbon neutral. So really, we're just trying to lead by example. It's nothing special. It's what should happen anyway.
The current site will be knocked down and redeveloped. But having had bids for developments in Giles Lane and Herne Bay knocked back by the local authority in recent months, the Noels say they are prepared to take the project to other councils if it's rejected again.
We want to work with councils that will embrace the future of property development, which we feel is a carbon neutral stance, free energy for the consumer who's buying the property. If we can take it out to other councils who will embrace the future of development, then we will do, and that is a plan going forward.
If the plans are granted for the site on Goose Farm, the Noels hope to replicate the scheme at another location in Canterbury, earmarked for 50 homes. But plans have been submitted, and they hope the council, like them, are keen to go green. This is Phil Welbrook for KMTV.
Harry's back now to talk a little bit about what's coming up on Team Talk after the break. So we're heading into the middle of November now, Harry. A couple of weeks away from December, a notoriously really tricky but really important time for football clubs. What about the Kent sides? How are they faring before that crucial period?
Yeah, well, I mean, the start of the season has been a bit topsy-turvy for Kent sides so far. Jay Saunders, he left Maidstone after they had a really bad start to the season. We also saw Darren McMahon just last week leave Ebbsfleet. He's been replaced. And, of course, Chris Kinnear as well. He left over the week before that. So the hat-trick of National League managers from Kent sides going. But now new managers come in and taken over their helm. Harry Wheeler, he's come in at Maidstone. Tough start for him in the first few games, but it seems to have kind of bedded in what he wants from the side, which is lots of hard work. And I mean, even at the weekend when they were playing against Macclesfield, his approach is to talk to the players and reassure them. But he said at the weekend, to get this result out of them, he actually had to give them a good grilling in the locker room, which is something he doesn't always do. So we'll have the highlights from that game as well coming up in the programme and Team Talk after the break. And
very quickly, who you've got on as a guest?
We've got Darren Young, who's been in the Invictus Games representing Great Britain and of course Kent, and then we've also got a representative from the Maidstone Roller Dance Club as well.
Thank you very much indeed, Harry. That's Team Talk coming up after the break, but for now, it's goodbye from me. Goodbye.